Hey, this is Professor Ken.
And this is Professor Marino.
And this is the Forward Motion Business Show. Thanks for joining us. This is actually our broadcast #1. So we're pretty excited to get started. In today's show, we're actually going to cover a great book. It's by Og Madino called The Greatest Salesman in the World. We'll also cover the collapse of one of the largest retailers here in the United States. And in our studio, we have our guest who's a disruptor in the business world himself, and innovator. This is Mike Ninomiya, and he's with Clear to Close Home Loans, and he's going to share with us what he's doing to help his clients find the proper loan, and also talk about his $10,000 mistake. So welcome, Mike, to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
We're glad to have you. So why don't we get into the business book, The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Madino, Paul. So with that, in my opinion, that's one of the greatest books written for any business, for not just a salesperson, for anybody who's in business, for a lot of reasons, right? And what I really appreciate about the book is it's somewhat spiritual, I think, but it's basically about Hafid, who's a poor cow, starts off as a poor camel boy, right, and eventually becomes the greatest trading empire in the world. And he does this day by day through a constant effort. And he comes across these 10 scrolls. That's what this book is all about. And he follows the 10 scrolls. And in the book, they talk about if you take the 10 scrolls and you practice them 3 times a day for 30 days each, your life will get better.
I think it's one of the most inspirational books. I mean, I got my copy years and years ago, and I read it so many times that the pages turned yellow, and then they actually fell out. And when I recommend it to students today or to colleagues today, even though it's set in biblical times, and even though it has a little bit of a religious slant to it, I say, if it's a short book, it's maybe 200 pages. And I'm willing to venture that it's going to change your life in some way. It's going to change your perspective,
right,
how you look at the talks about, today's the first day basically of the rest of my life. And I'm going to shed my old skin and I'm going to become a new person. And that new person is going to take me to where I want to go. And it dovetailed so perfectly into our program, because that's what forward motion is all about. Without forward motion, you're stagnant. So you've got to make a decision that you're going to commit to a book, you're going to commit to the show, you're going to commit to a change in the course of your life to produce the forward motion you want and take both yourself and your family to where you want to go.
Yeah, and I think that's very important.
Dying. That's it.
You're right, Mike. If you're not growing, you're dying. There is no, I broke even this year.
Yeah, exactly. Right. You're in to win it, right? You're not in it to break even.
Certainly not in it to break even.
So sure. One of the scrolls that I personally like is scroll number 3, which is I will persist until I succeed, right? And the concept there is that no matter what life throws at you, you have to be persistent. You have to keep going at it. Business is full of failures. In fact, you can't really succeed unless you fail. There's a lot of learnings from that. And that's one of the part of our shows too, which Mike will cover, a $10,000 mistake, unfortunately, that he made. But we all, if we're in business, we have those mistakes, and it does cost us money. So if you're persistent and you learn from that, you can.
Very intellectual guy. This one you look at and you say, well, gee, I wonder how he made it. He really doesn't have the qualities. But if there's one underlying quality that most successful people have in common, it's persistence. And persistence is a virtue that can overcome many other deficiencies,
right,
that you may have been dealt in life. So persistence to me is right up there on the top.
I agree. And Mike, tell us, in your perspective, were there times where you said, man, I shouldn't be doing this, I should just give up? Or
there were many times. I mean, many times. It happens daily in the mortgage industry, but you keep going. You know that the reason why you're doing it is because you want to create something. Your goal is to create a great company, to create a great culture. It's not easy, right? It's a lot easier to stay in your comfort zone, which is something that you guys probably should talk about. Comfort zone is, to me, the worst place in the world to be.
No question.
Once you're in that comfort zone, you don't challenge yourself anymore. There's no chance for greatness. There's no chance to achieve what you want to achieve because you're comfortable.
Right. And
to me, that's a terrible, terrible place to be. And I wake up every day, and a lot of the stuff that I see, I haven't read the book yet, and I will. I just got the book today, but a lot of the bullet points you have on the scrolls, I laugh because a lot of them the stuff that I'm doing already.
Right.
So I can see why, in being successful, you need all these things, and the book really covers that.
Yeah.
Well, that's the beauty of the book. The beauty of the book is that you can relate to those points no matter what industry you're in, no matter who you are. I mean, anyone can relate to them and grow and get forward motion by reading the book.
Yeah, and I think that's important. And you can get the book inexpensively on Amazon or whatever now. You get the paperback version for a couple of dollars. And the title might throw you off a little bit because it's not really. It says the greatest salesman in the world, but it's not just a sales book. It really is about a book on how to make yourself better. And so it has a combination of those things in it. So I would highly recommend that book. If I had to scale the book from a 1 being okay to a 5 being phenomenal, I would rate this at the 5 level because I think it's an important book to have in your business library.
Oh, no question. It's definitely part of not only your business library, but your life library.
Right.
One of the scrolls says, I'll greet this day with love in my heart. How many people do you meet in the course of your day who are just sour? I mean, you're just saying,
God.
Right.
I mean, you have
get
no
away from me.
idea.
Right?
You have no idea.
But then all of a sudden you meet that one person who is upbeat, who has a can-do attitude,
Right.
is moving forward, and you say, my God, this is a winner. This person's got the right idea.
Yeah, and that's important. So give that some consideration. And we all agree that this is a book that you definitely should pick up. It's a quick read. It's easy. And this is what we'll do here on the show. We'll share with you our favorite books. And Og Madino, the greatest salesman of the world, is definitely one of them. Another segment on the show, which we'll cover, is, we'll take a look at these failed businesses. And today's focus is one of the largest retailers. Well, it used to be one of the largest retailers, and that's Sears. And Sears had an incredible story. In fact, they were Amazon, right? Way before there was Amazon, before the internet even existed. So if you don't know the history, and you can Google it and look it up and all that, but they started as a small mail order company, right, in the late 19th century. And it
would be the event of the year to get the Sears catalog in your mailbox.
And they would send it out to millions of people, and they had this thing later on called the wish book, where people would circle. And I think I remember as a kid circling some things in the wish book when it was out, because I think they discontinued it back in the 90s. But this wish book was something that you would circle all these things, and you would have all these phenomenal items from Sears. In fact, one of the things that I'm researching is they actually sold house kits back in 1908. So
they sold washers and
right,
appliances.
So imagine getting a catalog in the mail today and saying you could buy a house kit, and they're like, the big one was called the Magnolia for like $5,000, $6,000, and you can buy that kit. So here they were, the largest retailer in the world. Remember, they had that big Sears Tower in Chicago. They had this big distribution center. In fact, Richard Sears, the founder of the company, when he actually wrote the catalog copy himself, and he had a great motto. He said, we can't afford to lose one customer, a customer, right? And that was his motto, a bad place to be.
Mark Cohen, who wrote a great article, he teaches in the MBA program, was actually an executive for they lost their way.
Yeah, think about this. They had, I'm looking at some stats here. They had, in 1945, they had $1 billion in sales. In today's dollars, that's $13 billion. And they were really synonymous with the shopping experience, the suburban shopping experience. So as they evolved, obviously the catalog, the car was invented, right, back in the 1900s.
Well, they said the biggest enemy of Sears was Mr. Ford from Ford Motors.
Right. So you didn't need the catalog anymore, because now you could drive to a store. But Sears picked that up too, because they built stores. In fact, they were one of the first stores to have parking lots for cars, and they built all these stores, and they grew really rapidly, and they hit their heyday again. So they were really innovative. They were really in tune to what the consumer wanted at that time. And somewhere in the 80s is where they started slipping, and that downfall sort of just continued into the 2000s, to where now they filed bankruptcy, and they're down to 100 stores from 3,000 or something like that.
Well, their stores, I haven't been in one in years, and that's a telltale sign, but their stores were very unexciting.
Right.
The other retailers came in, and they picked up where Sears started, and again, Sears got complacent, which is probably the biggest danger for any business, to get complacent and not be moving forward. And their stores suffered, and the results of their sales went down precipitously.
Exactly right. And when you look at what happened with Sears, so here they are, the largest retailer in the world. Along came this other big company eventually called Walmart, and then Target. And then, oh yeah, by the way, we have all these malls with high-end stuff. So they actually created two competitive positions, right, against them. So Sears ended up in the middle of those two competitive zones.
They got lost.
So in marketing, I always teach my students, don't get stuck in the middle, because if you're stuck in the middle, what do you think is going to happen to you? You're going to get crushed by the people that are on the sides. So you never want to have a product or service and be in the middle, because that's not a good place to be. You have to stay innovative. You have to stay on top of things, and that's important.
You go to a Walmart store today and you can't even find a parking space. You have to park like 2-3 blocks away to get into the store, unless you go like 6 o'clock in the morning, which is another advantage of going to them. But you go to a Sears store and you can park anywhere. I mean, it's incredible.
It is incredible. And I remember reading a book from Sam Walton, and he used to fly this airplane over his stores. And in the book, it tells that at one time he's flying over one of his stores and he saw that the parking lot was empty, or not as full as it should have been. He landed the plane, went to the store to find out why the parking lot wasn't full, and said, "What's going on here? Something must be going on, because my parking lot's not full." So, it's a sad thing to see, but there are so many stories that we'll cover over the next few episodes of why companies fail. And I think the key takeaway here, and Mike, we like your opinion too. The key takeaway here is Sears, as big as they were, and we're talking about big, and up until, from looking at the stats here, even up to 2014, believe it or not, they had the 5th spot in the top internet retailer. And that was a 5th spot. Of course, that was pre-Amazon days, when Amazon was strong and all this stuff. But the key takeaway here, I think, is you have to remain innovative. You have to stay in touch with what the consumer wants and how the market's changing.
Yeah.
And they sort of lost their way, right?
Yeah, I think they fell back on their old habits because it was working for so long. And they thought that would just carry through. They didn't realize that things were changing rapidly. And the thing about the digital space, the tech space, is that things change rapidly, right? Things change quickly. One of the comparisons I always tell people is, look at CDs. Right. It was just 10 years ago, everyone had a wall full of CDs.
Right.
Now, no one has CDs.
Wow. Remember the Walkman?
Yeah. Well, that was in and out. I mean, the iPod. And that's the thing about technology is you've always needed to move forward, and you always needed to keep up with the times.
Right.
But technology happens so fast. My company now, we do over $100 million in mortgages. We have one company fax. That's it. And it's not even a standard fax that's in an office. It's a digital one.
Yeah, digital fax machine.
We might get 12 faxes a year.
Yeah, and
that's the reason why we made that move.
I remember when the fax came out in the 80s, we used to get so excited to stand by the fax machine when we heard the thing ring and like, whoa, come on, let the paper come out. That was pretty exciting back then too.
And remember the pager?
Oh, the pager too. I had the Skynet. I paid $50 a month for a Skynet pager.
The Palm.
Yeah,
right. The Palm, the stylus.
Right. So innovation and technology does move. I think the key takeaway here, at least from the Sears collapse, is you have to be innovative always. Otherwise, your business is going to suffer. The other thing too, that if you look at some of the history, they had these brands which were phenomenal: Die Hard, Craftsman, Kenmore, right? Those were phenomenal, iconic brands, and they were really targeting the men. With those brands, the all tough, tested men's. And somewhere in the 80s, and this is where they started to lose it, they came up with this campaign called the Softer Side of Sears.
I remember that.
So the Softer Side of Sears, they tried to get the women involved, which was great, because then, but now you had a store that had all these hardware type items, and then a dress, and the consumers really got confused. They lost their way, like you said, Mike. They didn't leave the dance with the girl they came with, type of thing, right? They changed their positioning, and they ended up hurting themselves. And I think that was the beginning of the end. And then you had the competition, then you had the digital realm, and they just couldn't keep up with it.
The store just wasn't remarkable. It was big. The company was big, but it wasn't remarkable. And big today is not enough. Remember what happened to the dinosaur? It was big, but it's not with us anymore.
That's true. Very true. So this is Sears. I mean, unfortunately, they're just a small piece of what they used to be, and who knows if they'll be around. There is still 100 and something stores out there. They're still getting through the bankruptcy, I believe, but it doesn't look so bright for them. I think all brick and mortar stores have a finite time on their hands. I think sometime in the future
there'll be certain stores that'll be available to do that. Certainly JCPenney and Sears, as our generation starts moving out, they're going to be hard pressed to stay open.
Yeah.
There might be some consolidation there,
Sure.
right? Because just like we were talking earlier, the new generation, like our kids, are not going to be reading newspapers.
No.
Right?
Right.
And to me, a life without a newspaper is unimaginable.
Yeah.
Right, because I grew up with it.
Yeah,
Right,
me too. I read the Wall Street Journal. I wait for it to get into my
right, me too.
mailbox to read it. But in class, I'll say to the students, who reads this, who reads that, and no one even raises their hand.
No
They
one.
get all their news through the internet.
Right.
And you and I, we have a subscription to the Wall Street Journal. We certainly have digital content that we could look at, but I never look at the digital. I like having that paper in my hand.
Yeah.
And we're the last generation that will know that, because certainly my son, he only reads a newspaper when I force him to read an article, and even then, I'm not sure he's reading it all. We've become a nation of scanners. Right? People don't want to invest the time in scanning.
Want it now?
Yeah, the first 4 or 5 sentences, and
that's it.
That's it, and we're moving on to the next. So that is a byproduct of what's happening in the world.
Yeah, you're right. And I think, who's to say if I think we're in a better spot. We're living in a time, like, you mentioned Ford earlier. Imagine being around when the car first came out, and, you're going from horse and buggy to a car. You're like, well, this is never going to last, that type of thing. And how do you feed a car, and so we're living through that now. And we, remember, the iPhone's less than 12 years old, 10, 15 years old. YouTube is only 10 or something years old. So we're at like the very beginning of all of this.
Well, how old is Facebook?
Yeah, right, exactly right. And these are all life-changing, cultural-changing events, just like the car, right? Just like electricity, just like the TV, and we're now living that.
Well, look at the metamorphosis in just cars. We're at a new industrial revolution. How many car companies are saying by 2020, by 2030, they're not going to be internal combustion anymore? They're going to be electric.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. We'll see how that goes.
Cars are a great point. Look at Hyundai now has the Tesla technology, where the car backs up in the car park itself.
Yeah,
on a Hyundai.
I can't wait for that.
Yeah, that'll be phenomenal. There are some people out there that need that, though. I'm from New York. We even know how to parallel park in New York, which is a skill that a lot of people don't have.
I never realized that. I never realized it was such a challenging accomplishment for people to pick up.
Parallel park. Yeah,
apparently so. The rest of the country does the parallel park.
Yeah. So
I love the automatic braking. That's
that is pretty cool feature. So so we are getting better. So to wrap that up, I think things are going to change, and I think this is just one example, and we're going to probably see a few. There's a few of them right now, retailers that are hanging on with both hands and teeth and toes to what they're trying to do. And I think as the world changes, we're going to see those changes. So Mike, let's talk about your company a little bit and the innovative things that you're doing. Mike is with Claire to Close Home Loans, and you can find them online at that particular.com, and it's Claire 2 closed home loans, right? Yes. And so tell us about the innovative things that you're doing in the industry to help your clients get the proper loan for them.
Yeah, absolutely. So we designed the company for what's coming, we feel, in the future, what's happening. And in the mortgage industry is becoming an industry that is being disrupted by technology. We realized that. We saw that in 2017. And when I say we, it's my wife and I. We realized that the way the mortgage industry is operating now, or the way it was operating in 2014, is certainly not the way it's operating now in 2020. Certainly not. It's not even close.
Right.
The margins and what technology does, and I learned this from the trading floor. And I spent many years on Wall Street on the trading floor. And what I realized is when technology comes in and starts taking away margins, squeezes margins on loan products, and the loan product for us in this instance is the mortgage, the profitability on a mortgage. When that happens, when that occurs, that never comes back. So if you sit around thinking, oh, it's going to come back to the way it was, 5 years ago, never happens, right? I mean, do you attest to that?
Oh, sure.
Once technology comes in, once the margins leave, it never comes back. It's just the way it is. So we realize that, and our forecast in the future is those margins are going to get pressed even more, because what technology does and what technology has done to the mortgage industry is it doesn't eliminate the loan officer, because human beings all have a different financial situation, right? You know, you do your taxes one way, you do your taxes another way. I do my taxes another way. We all get paid differently. You know, if you're self-employed, you know, you need help from up above to get a mortgage these days. If you're self-employed, because, but so that's not gonna, it's not gonna eliminate the human aspect of it, because you just can't do it, right? But what it does is it will shrink the margins for you, because your competitors now are online and they're pricing their loans out at a smaller margin because they lower their overhead, they lower their production costs, they lowered everything they can. They don't have a brick and mortar. So anything that they've done to reduce the cost of originating a mortgage, they have done.
Right.
And it shrinks the margins. And the margins are how you create profitability in the mortgage industry.
Sure.
And that is what the digital disruption is doing right now.
Right.
And the only way to compete with that is to do what we saw anyway, is to roll out with today's margins, knowing where the margins are today, create a company that's based off of these digital margins. And believe it or not, the margins have changed dramatically since 2014. In a matter of 6 years, there was a study in 2014. Ellie Mae, which is a leader in the loan origination systems for the mortgage industry, Ellie Mae did a survey in 2014. Only 35 to 40 people went online to compare mortgage rates in 2014. Right, the internet was booming in 2014.
Right.
In 2018, they did a survey. 90% of people are online.
Everybody's Googling everything.
I can test to you. I have quoted people rates right in front of me, and they go online right in front of me and show me their rate. So they have instant access. So that access, and I went through this on Wall Street when they took away the teens, when they took away the tenths in trading, the eighths, and they put it into whole numbers, that start getting lower and lower. The margins going to start shrinking, and then there's going to be less of a pie if we stay in this model.
Right.
So we rolled out to this model, and what we've done is create a digital mortgage platform. We've created a total remote situation where all of our employees, we have 21 employees now, everyone works remotely. We rolled out in July 2018. We started out with a digital mortgage point of sale. We got hooked up with some investors that do a digital underwrite, which means they'll pull the taxes and they'll pull the W-2s and they'll pull the pay stubs and the bank statements. The client doesn't need to provide just one pay stub. We only need to provide one pay stub, one W-2, or one bank statement, and then we'll pull everything else digitally. So it's a really simple process. We can get loans closed in 18 days. We have one brick and mortar headquarters in Hollandale, not a huge space. We have an office in Tennessee and Georgia the same way, but we're not spending an exorbitant amount of money on that. We've done away with the sales leaders, the C-suite for now.
Right.
We've got team leads now instead of sales leaders that command huge incomes. And what we've done is we scaled down the business model as much as possible to be competitive with online investors and online mortgage companies, right? When I say online, I don't necessarily mean Rocket Mortgage. They're certainly a big player in that space, but there's other companies like Mr. Cooper and there's other companies that come up. Own Up is a company that I can think of. They squeeze that margin as low as possible.
Right.
So the retail shops that you see on the street, those are not our competition anymore. We've geared our business to compete with the online competitors.
Yeah, which is smart. And how do your clients feel about that? I mean, do you think the clients are happy? You've been in the industry a long time. At the end of the day, it makes for not only business, but it makes a client more successful, more happy. I would imagine.
Absolutely. So I have personal production. I was in the top 1% in the country for one of our investors. So that's over 25,000 loan officers that they have. I was in the top 1% of that in production. Phenomenal. I met with maybe 4 people face to face last year. I used to, when I started out, I met every single client face to face.
Right.
Fast forward to today, I just don't meet people face to face anymore.
Right.
Within the span of those 17 years, that face to face interaction has been pretty much eliminated.
Right.
Now, we have created a company just for that. And one of the big focuses that we have going forward is that we know the millennials are going to start purchasing homes now. They might want to live at mom and dad's forever, but eventually,
I hope not.
Yeah, exactly. Eventually,
we're kicking ours out.
Eventually, they're going to get kicked out.
Right.
So we know that. But I mean, if you think about it, just think about this in practicality, right? So if I tell a 29-year-old, say, hey, listen, spend an hour getting your income documents together, than spend an hour in traffic getting to my office. And then when you get to my office, we're going to sit together for an hour. We shoot you over our digital mortgage app on your smartphone. You can do the application on your smartphone. You can take pictures of your W-2 and pay stub on your smartphone. You send it to me on our digital mortgage app, and it comes over as a PDF, and you'll be done with the application in 20 minutes. 20 minutes later, I'll review your documents, and I'll send you your approval.
They're going to go for that every time.
100% of the time.
Right.
You know, I mean, and the truth of the matter is, if you don't have that capability in today's market, then you're going to lose out. Your capture rate is not going to be there because, like you said, there's no way these kids are not going to invest 4 hours. It's not the way.
Right.
I don't even go into a bank anymore. I do
Right.
everything digitally.
Exactly. I mean, in this day and age, to invest 4 hours, I mean, some people don't even invest 4 hours in a marriage anymore, right? So you invest 4 hours on trying to get approved for a mortgage. It's just not going to happen. And our partners are real estate agents, and our real estate agents, if you don't have that capability to approve that client right there when they're in front of them, well, they're going to move on to the next guy.
Sure, they can't make a sale. They want to make a sale, and you're holding them up.
That's exactly. So that's why we made the move. I mean, we have done away with a lot of things. We've done away with stuff that used to be, part of the industry.
Right.
I'll give you guys a great example. We are a paperless digital company, right? Paperless. We're a mortgage company that creates mortgages, deeds, loan packages. We save them more digitally now. When we rolled out, we started the company July 2018. I bought a box of paper. I still have one ream of that box of paper left. We created over $100 million in mortgages last year.
Are you saving the forest?
Definitely right.
Okay. It used to be not too long, just up until 5 years ago, mortgages had
stacks.
Stacks.
I remember, closing on the house. They had paper after paper, sign here, all the little arrows and all
no
that.
more. And the business is quickly moving towards a paperless closing as well. So e-closings are something that's going to start happening in Texas. They're doing it.
Right.
A notary doesn't even have to be present. So there's going to be no documents at closing. Everything's going to be online on an iPad.
Yeah.
You're going to sign, and a notary is going to be sitting much the way we're sitting around now. A notary is going to be sitting somewhere in whatever part of Florida they're in and observing what's going on. He's going to see it. He's going to see the pad. The pad's going to have the notary is going to be able to link in and see the signature happening.
Right. And
then he's going to be able to put his stamp on that. So there's going to be no paper. So eventually the business is going to get to a point where there's absolutely no paper.
Yeah.
And that is what the clients want.
Yeah,
Right.
and that's important. We talked about the whole Sears case and the business. If you don't deliver what your customer wants, if you don't move with the times,
Right, exactly.
you become, like you said, Paul, a dinosaur. And regardless of how big you are, you're gonna be extinct.
You're gonna die.
So again, we're talking to Mike Ninomiya with Clear to Close Home Loans, and you can find them online at that.com. So Mike, tell us, one of the things we want to share is our mistakes, and we talked about that earlier in the
It's plenty. Listen, when you run a company, you're going to make mistakes, right? I mean, and the hopes are that you make more good decisions than you make mistakes.
Right.
And the fact of the matter is, you certainly can't make a mistake if you don't make a decision. But the worst thing you could do when you own a company is not make a decision.
Right.
Right.
That's
So you have to make a decision one way, and I've always been like that. I've always been someone who's, you know what, I'm not going to stand still. I'm going to make a decision.
Right.
We're going to go with it, and we're going to push it. And that's
that forward motion.
That's it.
You got to have that forward motion.
Yeah, and you certainly can. You can live your life and not wanting to make a mistake and not wanting to make an error. And I guarantee you're not going to get ahead, right? Because either you make a mistake or you learn from it. I actually don't even think they're mistakes, right? Because you're paying for. Once you pay that, you've learned.
Right.
Now you got an education.
It's more an experience.
Yeah, I tell people, listen, when you go to college, you pay for that degree. But when you're in business, when you make that mistake, well, now you just learned. You paid $10,000 to get through that class, right? You got 3 credits in that class, and now you move on.
That's right.
And so one of the things that I did, I've made 2 $10,000 mistakes this year, and both was because I moved too fast. Right? I was ahead of myself. And one of the things, getting out of a position, well, you're done. So you always want to be early. So I always and being early has always served me well. But with another service that gave us the appended phone numbers and email addresses that they put online. So it was really a great system.
Right.
It was about $2,000 a month. And we created these leads. And we just didn't have the bodies to service the program as well. Hey, you know what? It'd be great for recruiting, which it actually turned out to be great. So that's I'll get into that as well. So the $10,000 mistake for me was it probably didn't create the direct leads that I was looking for,
Right.
but the indirect, I realized that the direct leads I was looking for wasn't going to happen as quickly as I wanted, but I wanted to leverage it anyway. This is back to the forward motion. I did something.
Right.
So now I got it. So I'm not going to quickly abandon it. I already have it. So I figure out, how am I going to leverage this? So what I did was I used it for recruiting. I used it for speaking to real estate agents. And indirectly, I was able to recoup some of that money because the recruits saw, hey, at least he has some data that can call phone numbers, like email people.
Right.
And the realtors saw that too, and they saw value in that. So I picked up a deal here. I picked up a loan office here. So I was able to leverage my mistake. I made the mistake by moving forward, but that point, I moved way too fast.
Right.
I should have waited till we had enough staff to handle what I had come in, because I was creating 5,000 to 10,000 leads a month.
Wow.
You
know, that's interesting what you said, because there's a lot of times in business, you know, people say we got to make a business plan and this and all. And I tell people business plans, I tell my students at least, business plans have to be somewhat fluid, because you may think it's a mistake or it may not turn out exactly the way you want, but you have to be creative enough to turn around and make that what you call a mistake or a misstep more accurately, and turn it around and make it into a positive.
Right. That's exactly what it is. And especially in the mortgage industry moves so fast and changes so quickly that, you know, business plans have to change quickly.
Sure.
Right. And as a business owner, I agree with you. If you're not flexible enough to change your business plan as the business is evolving, you can be stubborn despite what's the expression? You cutting off your nose despite your face, right?
Exactly.
You have a game plan. You want to stick with your game plan, but you also have to realize what's happening around you. You can't just dig in your heels when everything is changing around you, and you can't just stay stagnant, because what you stay.
Sure, there's been more than one. There's been a few. But if you had to use your knowledge and your experience over your broad years as a mortgage broker, what do you think the biggest $10,000 mistake that a borrower makes?
That's a great question. Believe it or not, a borrower not shopping their rate is a huge mistake for them, because every company operates at different profit margins, right?
Right.
That will vary in rates. So how a mortgage company draws their profits basically off rates and fees they charge. The fees they charge are there, transparent. You can see them on your loan estimate. The rate that they charge, totally something different. So the cost of the company originating that loan is baked into that rate. So some companies have a lower cost of origination. That company will always have lower rates. Some companies have a higher cost of origination. I will give you an example. There's a company that has a rocket. They advertise great. It's a marketing company. When I see that company, when a client comes to me with an LE from that company, I know I'm going to win that deal 99.5% of the time, because they're
more than that, because you're amortizing that cost over 15 or 30 years.
Yeah, so I'll give you a great example. An example I use when I talk to clients, I talk to loan officers, I talk to realtors. It's just a half a point on a loan of $200,000 can be a $70,000 mistake over the course of a 30-year period. And I try to give it to them even more crystal clear so they can actually understand it. We're in a state, you didn't shop around for your mortgage rate, right? Well, if you took that $220 and you put it into a Florida prepaid, at the end of 18 years, you'll have your kids' college tuition paid for. But because you didn't shop around, you're paying additional on your mortgage every month. Instead, now 18 years later, you have your tuition paid for and your kid for a Florida prepaid.
Right.
That makes sense?
Yeah. Now, Mike, there's really two types of shopping around. You know, there's the person who buys the house and they're going to shop around for their mortgage rate, and you're going to place that mortgage, you're going to institute that mortgage. But how about the person who's been in a house a couple of years? What is their strategy? Because it's fluid now. It's not just sitting on an old mortgage.
Right.
What do they do?
Yeah. So it's funny you asked that question. Today, the 10-year treasury is the lowest it's ever been. And the 10-year treasury is something that tracks the mortgage industry. We're not directly impacted by that. We're not directed by the Fed. We react to the mortgage bond security, the mortgage history of the 10-year today. So anyone that has a mortgage right now, the last I saw, about 21 million people now today is taking a look at what you can do to improve your situation. Is probably one of the worst things you can do financially, because at this point, you could be in a home for tear. Again, I always tell people, at this point, the mortgage should be part of your financial health, should be part of what you're looking to build wealth with, what you're looking to gain from, right? So if you're paying that compound, the amortized interest, that is something that's real. People don't think about it. And what I find that helps people is, and because no matter how much digitalization we have, humans need to see things, right? We need to see stuff in black and white. Right. So I break it down and give them a schedule. Say, here's your loan that you're in now. Here's what you paid. Here's the proposed loan. Look at the savings over the course of the next 15 years, 20 years, how much you save. And if you have a $300,000 loan, I mean, just saving a half a point or 3/4 of a point, that can sometimes be $100,000. And being complacent and giving away that money, I tell people all the time, listen, you're in a great situation, right? Because you have an opportunity to save yourself $100,000. Not a lot of people have that opportunity, right?
It's a big expense.
Today, if you do nothing, you're literally throwing
lost cost. It's lost opportunity.
You're literally throwing money out the window.
It's a lost opportunity.
And I want to be you. I want to be you to have the opportunity to say, hey,
now that person, getting back to that person, that person's probably sitting on a big chunk of equity. That person's probably a little bit older, has a little bit more savings. Is that person more attractive, or is that person easier to replace that mortgage versus someone coming in as a first timer?
Well, it's two different things. So the first time home buyer, they have a lot of questions, right? So they're going to want to know that they have a lot of insecurities because they understand what they're looking to do. They have goals. So one of the things that I like to ask my clients is, hey, what's one of your goals that you want to try to accomplish here with this refinance? Do you want to take cash out? Do you want to have a lower rate? Do you want to have the home paid off? A lot of times, if you speak to a client that's in their 60s, well, they're paying off the house, maybe not be their goal, believe it or not. They just want the lowest payment.
Right.
And they were like, you know what? Stretch it out to a 30-year. I don't care. And I've had clients 80 years old call me up, and we can't discriminate, right? I want a 30-year mortgage. I'm like, any particular reason? He goes, I just want the lowest payment possible. And we give the cash out. He takes out whatever he wants to take out, 30-year mortgage, and he's happy. So again, a mortgage is extremely a personal decision, right? Because my mortgage needs are not the same as someone who just had a newborn. Different mortgage needs. I just downsized, right? My son is in college. No more kids in the house. I don't need a 5-bedroom house anymore. So my mortgage needs are different. Your mortgage needs are going to be different than my mortgage needs. So the mortgage is an extremely personal.
So customization is a big key.
Yeah, absolutely. Because and I always ask that. So where do you want to be? Is this home that you see yourself staying in for the next 15 to 20 years? Let's set you up on this. Let's talk about your goals as an individual. What do you want to do? All right. So let me try to figure out where you want to be, and I'll show you different ways to make this mortgage work for you. Because that really, and it's a financial tool. So everyone needs to understand that a mortgage is not just a mortgage, is where you're going to raise your family, but
going to be flipping houses, and there's no, it's a long-term investment. Absolutely. That's the key thing. We had a discussion, and by the way, we have to talk afterwards because you helped me with my last loan. It was like 4.5%. So maybe I could save a couple more points. But we had a discussion not too long ago how people, if you're buying a new TV, right? You get on the internet and you check out, and you're looking through 5 different TVs, and you're trying to figure out, how you could save $10 on a $300 TV or something like that, free shipping and what's that. But they don't, consumers are not looking at what they can save with mortgages. And we're talking about 6-7 figures here. We're talking about a lot of money here. We're not talking about saving shipping, free shipping.
That is something that's always struck me as being remarkable. You're buying a $200,000-$300,000 home. For most people, it's the largest purchase that they're going to make in their life. A person will think nothing of spending the Saturday afternoon going to 4 stores, seeing if they can save $75 on a 60-inch TV, right? In terms of mortgage, for some reason, people lock in on one person. Boom, that's what I'm going to do.
Well, people get complacent. I mean, we talked about our grandparents, for them, a mortgage was a mortgage for life. But now with the millennials and with us, like you said, it's just another financial tool. So we should be looking at that. You're saying we should be
100%.
looking at that 10-year treasury. And if that 10-year treasury is far away from our mortgage rate, we need to talk to somebody.
Absolutely. Especially now. It is today, this morning. There's no reason, if you have a mortgage that's in the threes, even, you need to speak to someone. If you have a mortgage that's over 3%, you need to go speak to.
Sure.
Hopefully, you could be calling us at Clear to Close Home Loans, www.claire2homeloans.com. But if you have a mortgage that's in the threes today, you definitely need to talk to a mortgage expert. And we have plenty of mortgage experts here at Clear to Close Home Loans, www.claire2closehomeloans. And you have to talk to them because you're missing out on an opportunity to either lower your rate, lower your term.
Right.
I have plenty of people now, and this is a big one for us, that originated a loan 4 years ago on a 30-year mortgage at 4.75%, which 4.75%
was pretty good.
It's a great rate.
Right. It's a good rate.
Have come back 20-year mortgage now. After owning the home for 4 years, 20-year mortgage at 3%, they're saving $75 a month, and they just shaved 6 years off their mortgage.
Yeah.
So you're talking about one phone call will save you $75,000.
Yeah.
And I try to, and that's real money.
That's a good phone call.
That's a phone
call
That's
you
a
need to
great
take,
phone call, right?
What was the number we need to call?
833-872-5225.
I want my 75,000.
So that's great, Mike, and we really appreciate you being here. What would you like to tell our listeners about your company that separates you from everybody else, and how can they benefit from working with you?
Yeah. So like I said, in the digital space that we've created a program where, we are all about what the client wants. The client wants that immediate access to being approved. The realtors want that immediate access to being approved. Clients don't want to spend 4 hours driving, bringing paperwork back and forth. They want something to, the amazing thing about technology is it has freed up our time, but we seem to have no time. Right? That's the amazing thing about technology. It has freed us up from doing a lot of things, but now we have so many other things to do that no one has any time anymore.
We're all multitasking.
Right? When was the last time you met someone for coffee just to go have coffee? And one of the things that we've done on a local level, we're here still locally, but we're throughout the state of Florida, Tennessee, and Georgia. We allow for clients to have that one-on-one conversation with the loan officers. If they need to come in to see the office, we do it still. A lot of our business is, like I said, virtual and remote. But for the most part, it's all about convenience with us. People really enjoy the fact that they can do an online application. They enjoy the fact that they can go to our digital mortgage point of sale and take a picture of their W-2s, pay stubs, and driver's license, and just upload it right into the portal.
Yeah.
So, Mike, the call to you is not only, if I understand this correctly, the call to you is not only the person who needs a mortgage, but let's say there's a real estate professional out there
absolutely,
who, for some reason, all is butting, their head against the wall on getting their paperwork done or getting that property closed or helping their investor close on that property.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You want to speak to them as well, no?
Yeah, absolutely. We have several real estate agents that we deal with, and they absolutely love our platform.
Sure.
Because we can, everything in sales, and the bottom line is no matter how digital we get, sales drives almost everything in our lives.
No question.
Right?
Yeah.
Sales drives everything.
Nothing happens until a sale is
made. And I tell everybody, no sales ever been closed without the lead first, right? You need a lead first, and then that point of sale is the most impactful part of that transaction, right?
Sure.
If you have someone in front of you where you can make that sale, and that is where realtors really rely on us. When they had a client in front of us and the client's ready to do that loan application, that realtor absolutely needs to be able to get that application done, pre-approval in their hands, and build that relationship with that client before that client walks out of the office.
Right.
If that client walks out of the office and that pre-approval is not done, well, the realtor might not get that client back. So the realtor really depends on that quickness. They need that speed to market, because then you become an asset to that real estate agent.
Right.
And that really is a lot of our business comes from real estate agents that want that. and they need
Well,
that.
sure, they're looking out for their client as well.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
And that goes to a basic business fundamental, which is if you're helping the people, and this is a Zig Ziglar term, by the way, if you're helping the people get what they want, eventually you can get what you want. And in
Yeah.
the business, you have to work together. So just to recap a couple things. So your 10,000 mistake, at least the latest one was you rather be early than late.
Yeah,
but-
but you got to be cautious.
But you gotta be
you got to be
cautious, right?
cautious.
You got to be flexible. You got to
Yeah.
be ready to
Flexible,
turn
too.
that. turn
Yeah,
that
I would
situation
say
around.
what I should have done in retrospect is roll it out a little bit at a time, right? Not roll everything out all at once.
Right.
Just roll out a little bit of it at a time, and then when we had the whole process, that is done, and we know the process 100%. Then roll that out totally. So I guess my feedback to everyone listening to this podcast would be, if you want to institute something new, roll it out small, test market it, baby step that through. Don't disrupt your successful
Right, your
business
model,
right? But if you want to roll something new, start it out small and let that kind of snowball a little bit. My biggest mistake was I came in gung ho. I kind of have the Richard Branson mentality.
Yeah, just say yes to everything.
Just say
right?
yes to everything. Just
Right.
figure everything out when you got it in hand.
Right.
And that's always been my motto. It's served me well, 85% of the times.
It served him pretty well.
Yeah.
Too.
So I mean, I you know what? I have, if everything I do in my life is 85% success ratio and the 15% I
It's
got to
pretty
figure,
good, right?
I'll take that, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm a baseball player and 30 and
You
guys,
only need to be one-third of
exactly. Baseball players hit
33%.
33%, and they
Yeah.
make the Hall of Fame.
Right.
So if
Exactly.
if I'm doing 85% in business, I'm sure I'm really. Hopefully, the 15% doesn't completely wipe me out.
Right.
But I've been on that end too. Where
Right.
I've been on that end
full
too.
spectrum.
Even the best players strike out once
Yeah,
in a while.
so,
exactly.
But that would be the biggest feedback I have. And actually, the two mistakes I made this year, both were not rolling things out slower. Right. So a new initiative, probably roll that out a little bit slower. And I say that if it's going to be something that is costly, if you look at the cost of rolling it out and the cost of not doing it well, what is that going to cost you? Then I think that rolling out slow is something I would definitely advise.
Right.
Take your time rolling it out. Make sure you got it right. And then another thing that I would tell you guys about is cutting your losses on employees and cutting them quickly, because we kept an employee on who started with us. Really, they were good at the startup phase, right? They were good in the startup phase. As we amped up, as we got bigger, more people, not so good anymore.
Right.
But we wanted to maintain our loyalty, and I was a blind leader, right? Every leader wants to be able to coach his team up, and I'll stick with her. I'll show her how to do this, and it just never took. And then finally, I was getting complaints from real estate agents that we deal with. I was getting complaints from clients, and delivering to our investors the secondary packages. And then finally, we lucked out where she actually said, "Hey, you know what? I'm just too overwhelmed. I gotta leave." And it's a super nice person, a wonderful person.
Right.
And I wish it would have worked out, but I would tell everyone, as you start growing, the people that you started with might not be the same people that can keep up with your growth. That's something that we learned this year.
Yeah, and that's a valuable lesson too, because the things change, and sometimes, like a
marriage,
like a
right?
marriage,
Things change.
like the example we just said in Sears, right? The whole world moved around them, and they stayed where they
Right.
were. So that's an issue. Well, we really appreciate you being here. Again, this is Mike from Clear to Close Home Loans, and you can find him at that.com, and give him a call, and he'll talk you through some things and perhaps work with you on trying to get you in a new position for your home loan. So today we covered some great things. We talked about the greatest salesman in the world from Og Madino and how important we think that book is part of your life. We looked at the fall of Sears, which was one of the largest retail companies out there. And, at the end of the day, we think they just got complacent and they weren't innovative and they got stuck in the middle. And then Mike gave us some important takeaways. Number one is, if you're going to move, you want to be early, but you want to calculate your risk and do that cost benefit.
And you always want to keep moving.
Yeah.
No matter, and don't get deterred by a failed move.
Right.
Because only one fail. As a business owner, you're making 100 moves. One failed move should not deter you. It's very easy.
Right.
You know, just like anything in life, the negative stuff always outweigh, or in your mind anyway,
Right.
seems bigger than all the positive stuff. But I tell everybody all the time, there's so many, 95% of our life is positive, right?
Right.
We have some wonderful people that we talk
That's
to.
right.
The sky is blue. You're breathing on your own.
Exactly.
The beach is wonderful. The trees are beautiful. The birds are singing. Like 95% of the stuff we have around us is just remarkable.
Right.
Life is wonderful. The 5% of the stuff that's not so wonderful, for some reason, gets all the press. I don't know, but
Yeah.
that's just the way it is.
It overcomes.
But
it,
you
yeah.
got to just realize that's just one piece. It's a small piece of what you're dealing with. And I tell my son all the time, listen, everything else is wonderful.
Right.
So you deal with that one piece. Hopefully you mitigate whatever problems it is, and you'll be able to solve it, and then you move on, because the rest of what you're doing is just spectacular.
Yeah, and you have to
Exactly.
put that in perspective and stay focused and stay persistent
Yeah.
and keep that up. So so listen, I want to thank you for being our first guest. It's wonderful to
Thank
have
you
you
very
here.
much.
Very
guys.
interesting.
And
Yes.
you know,
You
stick
guys-
with us. We'll bring you a lot of different insights from very.
Go get a t-shirt, a forward motion t-shirt.
You'll get a forward motion
All right,
T-shirt.
very
You
nice, all
you
right.
also get a call from Paul and I after the show to discuss our home loans to see where we could be to save a couple of bucks. I'd rather save
Excellent.
money than give you a T-shirt. So we want to thank everyone for joining us, and you could find us on forwardmotion2020.com, and just follow our live stream and subscribe to us, and we'll be here again next week. So this is Professor Ken. I'll see you out there.
And this is Professor Marino.
So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you real soon. All right, so long.
Bye-bye.